I didn't plan for my life to crack open on a random Tuesday night, but that's how it usually happens, right? You're not looking for the moment that changes everything. You're just trying to get through dinner. I was sitting in a midtown steakhouse. I could barely afford celebrating what I thought was a small win at work when the manager leaned over and said, real casual, "Hey, can you switch tables? Someone important wants this one." I remember laughing at first, thinking it was a joke because, yeah, that kind of thing only happens to other people. Until I saw who someone important was. Ethan Caldwell, billionaire, tech darling, magazine cover guy, the kind of man who never waits in line and never hears the word no. And sitting next to him in a tailored dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent was his new partner, smiling like the world owed her something. They didn't even look at me when I stood up. Not once. I was just furniture being moved. And that's when I saw her. Behind the bar, moving a little slower than everyone else, one hand unconsciously resting on her belly, was Ava. My sister. Very pregnant, wearing a service uniform, in a place where Ethan Caldwell tipped more on wine than she probably made in a week. That's when my stomach dropped and something inside me snapped at the same time. You see, people like Ethan don't just ignore you by accident. It's a habit, a lifestyle. And for years he'd treated my family like we were invisible, disposable, inconvenient. Especially Ava. Especially after she stopped being useful to him. I didn't say anything at first. I sat back down, heart pounding, watching Ethan laugh loudly while Ava poured drinks a few feet away, her face locked into that professional half-smile people wear when they're exhausted but can't afford to show it. His girlfriend leaned over and said, "Can you believe the staff here?" "So slow." Ethan smirked. That's what happens when standards slip. I could feel my hands shaking. Not fear, rage, the slow, quiet kind that builds until it's almost calm. Ava and Ethan had history. Not the kind that ends well. She used to work for one of his companies. Sharp as hell, smartest person in any room, the kind of woman people called intimidating, because they didn't like being outpaced. When she got pregnant, she told him. Thought he deserved to know. He denied everything. Questioned timelines. Questioned her character. And when layoffs conveniently rolled through her department, her name was at the top of the list. No proof, no explanation, just a polite email and a locked badge. Now, here she was serving drinks to the man who destroyed her career while he complained about service like she was beneath him. That was the hook. That was the moment my life split into before and after. I got up and walked to the bar. Ava looked up surprised, then relieved, then worried all in half a second. "What are you doing here?" she whispered. I told her I'd explain later. She told me not to make a scene. I promised her I wouldn't. And, yeah, that was a lie. Just not in the way she thought. I went back to my table, picked up my phone, and did something I'd been avoiding for years. I called in a favor. See, people assume if you're not rich, you're powerless. That's not true. Power just looks different. I'd spent a decade working in compliance, watching executives cover their tracks, learning where the cracks always were. I knew Ethan's reputation. Untouchable. Clean. Bulletproof. That kind of image takes work. And shortcuts. By the time dessert menus came out, I had already pulled public filings, flagged shell entities, and found 3 discrepancies that shouldn't exist if everything was as perfect as Ethan claimed. Not proof yet, but a scent. Ethan's girlfriend caught me looking at them and raised an eyebrow. "Do we have a problem?" she asked. I smiled and said, "No. Just curious how someone gets so rich and still looks so empty." Ethan laughed like I'd told a joke. "Careful," he said. "Curiosity can be expensive." "Yeah," I replied, "so can arrogance." That was our first real exchange, and I could see it. The flicker. He didn't like being spoken to like a person. Over the next week, I didn't sleep much. Ava begged me to let it go. She said she didn't want trouble, didn't want stress, didn't want him noticing her again. That broke me more than anything else. The fact that she'd been trained by fear to stay small. So I worked quietly, dug deeper, cross-referenced data, followed money. And what I found wasn't just dirty, it was systematic. Ethan's company had a pattern. Talented employees pushed out right before vesting dates. whistleblowers buried under NDAs, pregnant women labeled performance risks, all legal-looking, all rotten underneath. The turning point came when Ava collapsed at work. Dehydration. Overworked. No maternity coverage because she was technically part-time. The hospital asked about insurance. She looked at me and said, "Don't call him," like that was the worst thing that could happen. That night I stopped playing defense. I leaked nothing. I threatened no one. I just filed. Regulators, oversight boards, labor commissions, quiet, boring, devastating paperwork. And then I waited. Ethan called me 2 days later. His voice was smooth, friendly, like we were old buddies. "I hear you've been asking questions," he said. I told him I'd just been reading. He laughed. "You don't want to do this," he said. "People get hurt." I said, "Funny. That's what my sister said when she asked you for help." Silence. Real silence. The kind that tells you finally hit something real. The investigation went public a week later. Stock dipped. Partners panicked. Journalists started calling former employees. Stories poured out. Ava watched it all from my couch, one hand on her belly, the other gripping a mug like it might shatter. She kept saying I never wanted revenge. I told her this wasn't revenge. This was correction. Ethan tried to spin it, said it was a smear campaign, personal vendetta, bitter ex-employee nonsense. Until the emails surfaced, until the payouts surfaced, until the patterns were undeniable. The day regulators showed up at his office, I was with Ava at a prenatal appointment. When the nurse smiled and said, "Everything looks healthy," Ava cried. Not because of the baby, because for the first time in months, she felt safe. Ethan resigned 2 months later. No apology, no admission, just a statement about moving on. His girlfriend vanished. His empire shrank. He landed softer than most people ever will. And yeah, that part still makes people angry. I get it. Ava didn't get her old job back. She got something better. A settlement that covered her medical care, a public acknowledgement that what happened to her was wrong, and a network of women who came forward because she did first. She started consulting, teaching companies how not to become the next headline. Sometimes people ask me if it was worth it, if the stress, the fear, the risk were worth taking on someone that powerful. I always think about that night in the restaurant, about how small they tried to make us feel, about how easy it is to stay quiet and how expensive silence really is. Here's the uncomfortable question I'll leave you with. If you were in my place, would you have spoken up knowing the person you were challenging might still walk away? Mostly fine, or would you have protected your peace and let injustice stay tidy and hidden? And if you were in Ethan's place, would you admit you were wrong, or just wait for the noise to fade? Tell me what you think. Was this justice, or was it crossing a line? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I read them. If you've ever seen power used to silence someone, share that too. And if this story made you think twice about staying quiet, like, subscribe, and pass it on. Sometimes the only thing that changes the story is someone deciding they're done being invisible.